a few months ago, and I don't know if you ever saw any of these, but a few months ago, I was kind of diving into this question of, what does it mean to have a creative identity, and what does it mean to have a creative persona and a creative fingerprint? And I did a lot of pretty heady academic reading on this stuff. And, once I cut through the massive thesis statements and reference sheets and all this, the content was really interesting. And one of the things that really stuck out through a lot of the research that I did was that the very act as a human of having an identity and a sense of self is itself a creative act. In that, in order to be able to say, my name is Jameson, I like these things, you are creating not just a profile, but you're creating something that is well beyond what you just do day to day. And then and then because of that, the things that you do day to day are influenced by your sense of identity. So it becomes this self-drawing picture, right? So one of the insights that I took out of that, and one of the things that one of the beautiful things that I think came out of that from my own understanding, is that everybody is creative to some degree. And people who say, oh, I'm not creative, well, maybe you haven't trained it as well. Maybe you haven't developed a craft that allows you to express it as quickly as somebody who can pick up a guitar and just play, and within a few hours can very quickly have, this beautiful expression of how you feel and what you're going through or what you're thinking about. They might not have that, but that's not to say that that cannot be developed. The very act of being is a creative act. And so all of what we do to some degree or another is in itself a little bit creative in some way or another, whether or not we intend it to be.
I can see that as being true. Especially, I think that one of the easier things to point at or point to is, what clothes do you choose to wear?
Yep.
How do I decorate my house?
Yes.
What choice of silverware did I pick? What color are my plates? Just little things like that show some form of preference that's rooted in expression of yourself. And that expression could be, extrapolated into creativity.
I think the way that the mnemonic or the quick little snippet in my head that I keep in mind that quickly allows me to go, oh yeah, that's right. And this and this and this and this is, to create is to be human, and to be human is to create. I think that's a very, it is really a reciprocal relationship like that of, yep. To what degree is a secondary question. That is a core kind of, okay, if we are assuming this is correct, then that means a lot of cool things and can be taken in a lot of directions. And yeah, I really like those examples of, how do you dress? How do you decorate your house? What foods do you like to go eat? What do you cook for yourself, right? How do you, if you're going on a date with somebody or you're taking your friends out to dinner, where do you take them? What do you do? Those are all creative choices. And so it's been interesting after thinking about that and now plugging in what you're saying to that larger thought, to hear people say, oh, I'm not creative, or, oh, I can never create this or that. Well, maybe there's, but maybe you could. And maybe there's some ways that you're already doing it that you're not aware of.
And I do think that some people are better at certain mediums than others.
Yes.
Not everyone's going to be a good dancer because not everyone is as coordinated as other people, That's not your medium. Try something else. I have a friend who's like, oh, I am a terrible singer and I have no sense of rhythm or musicality. And there's a part of me that's like, I'm sure we could train it, but you know what? I will admit you'll probably never be, at the Royal Albert Hall. That's fine. What about other mediums of art, And then let's not forget, because as you were talking about, to be human is to create, and to create is to be human. I was trying to think, there's something about how, what was the first sign of civilization? And the idea was their proof of the first civilization was a healed femur that they found, which signified that someone had a broken leg and that the others took care of it, right? But that also means that it was probably set which makes me think about how creativity is much more than just art. It's also innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And there really is kind of like these lines, these, gray areas between like what is technology and what is art. Like to be creative, someone had to think about like the first computer and come up with sewing machines and just everything.
Yeah.
That was all born out of innovation, which is in some ways the same thing as being creative.
There's, just to reinforce that, there's the idea of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Are you familiar with these at all? Okay.
No.
So the super
say those terms, I go,
okay.
You were the cognitive science major.
For a little bit, not for long, but the interest stuck around. Divergent thinking is being able to really, for lack of better or more technical words, to explode your thinking in a lot of directions about all of the ways that things could happen or could be used, right? The ideas of kind of lateral thinking and things like this, of going, hey, if I give you a brick, how many ways can you use it? Those are more traditionally divergent thinking examples. Then there's convergent thinking, which is converging on an outcome or a utility or a destination, right? That's quite literally how I remember it. It's convergent thinking is pointing in a direction, going to a destination. You are trying to get something specific. So divergent is exploration. Convergent is picking a destination and going there. And so talking about innovation and what it means to create in maybe less traditionally creative domains. Although if the first example of human civilization was a healed femur, then maybe left-brained or utility creativity is the traditional creativity, and we've got it backwards.
It was just necessary. It was the necessary one.
Absolutely. But, this idea of kind of left-brain creativity versus right-brain creativity, where left-brained is, much more quantitative. It's what are we going to fix? How are we going to do it? But approaching that in ways of like, what are some ways that we can do this that we haven't done it before, right? How can we not just redefine the wheel, but go and build something that's not even a wheel at all? Go and build something completely different. And then right-brained creativity is, for lack of a better term, storytelling in my mind, right? Which is, let's take some symbols and let's make some meaning out of them in a way that the symbols by themselves would have no real purpose. They would just be shapes or sounds or whatever. And let's stick those all together in a way that constructs a narrative that takes people on an adventure. There's no point to the adventure necessarily, except for what we assign to it, the value that we assign to it. And so I think, and this is where this becomes a working theory or a working kind of thought that I'm chewing on, like being able to do both of those or being able to appreciate both sides of that coin underpins creativity in a way that I don't hear talked about very often. And I think a lot of other people don't speak about creativity in that same sense. So I'm really interested to explore that more. And I really appreciate all the stuff that you've kind of brought to the conversation about this, of just like, yeah, like here's what connecting is, and here's what it means to be authentic and feel your craft and feel the things that you're producing and connect based on that and how it resonates. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was very closely related. And in the same way that you've given me a lot to think about, I think that that's a cool way that I'm thinking about it right now, and certainly helps contextualize what it means to be creative, which then feeds back into the top of the equation of, okay, well now how do you go and apply that in whatever you're doing, whatever your medium is?
You're like, here's your existential crisis. Go.
Yeah, you gave me an existential crisis. I feel like I have to at least try to return one.
I love what you said about the storytelling and how you said it was just a bunch of symbols and sounds, because to me, that sounds like language.
Yep. Hey friends, if you liked that clip of the Create Connected podcast, you might like listening to the entire episode using the link on screen.